last several weeks, Mr. Mallott, who is a retired hospitality guy like me, and he is retired from Hilton Corporation. And he's going to tell you a little bit about himself, and he's going to tell you a little bit about customer service. So please give me your undivided attention. I know you all have some questions that you'll ask him during and after.
Perfect. Great, thank you.
Floor is yours.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Can we have some fun? Is that okay with you? Because I don't want to just stand up here and spout and pontificate. You know, I really would like this to be an open discussion. And I think hopefully I've got some good information I can share with you, and I'm looking forward to your input as well. As Chris mentioned, I'm a recent retiree from the Hilton Corporation. I retired this past May after 37 years. I was 9 at the time when I started, but it's a joke. Come on, people. 37 years. I came back here to Memphis in 1979, and I worked for Hilton, various forms. Actually, when I went to work for the company, it was Holiday Inns of America. Then it became Holiday Corporation, and then the Holiday Inn brand was sold to Bass PLC, and they moved it to Atlanta, and we became Promise Hotels. And then Promise Hotels was purchased by Hilton, and then along the way we purchased DoubleTree, and then the whole kit and caboodle was purchased by Blackstone, which is a venture capital company out of New York City. And about 4 years ago, they took the company back public. And some of you may have recently seen information either online or in the newspaper that a Chinese company just bought 25% of Hilton, and they bought it from Blackstone. So Blackstone is obviously going to be getting rid of their ownership slice of Hilton and go on to do some new types of development or real estate deals. That's what venture capitalists do. But for the majority of the time I was with Holiday Corp, Promise, Hilton, I have been involved in training hotel leaders as well as developing and delivering materials for hotel team members based around this whole concept of service. And for the last 9 years, actually, I was involved in launching and supporting this new model that we have for a service recovery process. I was working for 2 of the Hilton brands at the time. Homewood Suites. How many of you are familiar with Homewood Suites? Anybody ever stayed in one? No? Okay. You have? Yeah? Where was that?
I stayed in I believe, when we were in Texas, Dallas,
Texas, yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, it was pretty nice. We
Just
used to
pretty
stay
nice.
in-
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't go overboard or anything.
We used to go to the same one, so hey, Embassy or like anywhere, like anything about like the Hilton. So.
Yeah, Embassy is also a great Hilton product, yeah. Homewood Suites and the other brand I work with, Home 2 Suites, which you may or may not be familiar with because they're still fairly new, are the extended stay products for Hilton hotels. And extended stay means they're designed for guests who are going to be coming in and staying for 5 nights or more. So that's why they have kitchens. Okay. Home 2 is just kind of a mid-scale extended stay product. Homewood Suites is an upscale extended stay product. And I'm very proud to say that both of those brands have just done incredibly well. They outperform the competition in their respective markets and their respective segments by occupancy, ADR, and market share. They've got the best of all worlds. And they've been selected by J.D. Power and Associates, based on their survey, as the top hotels in their segment for customer service. Home 2 Suites just won their first award this year because this was the first year they had enough hotels and enough survey results to qualify. So they got it right out of the box, number 1. Homewood Suites has won it 9 times out of the 14 years that they've been eligible to win it. So both of those brands, I think you can see. I mean, and how many of you are familiar with J.D. Power? How many of you have heard of it? Okay, somebody explain J.D. Power. What do? They what? You don't know? You just heard of them. Okay. Anybody in here have an idea how J.D. Power works? No. Okay. Well, they're basically a survey organization. They're an independent group of people that rate businesses and companies. You can't buy a J.D. Power rating. Essentially what happens is they go out and they survey customers for hotels. They survey customers. They actually started in the automobile business. That's where you went to look to see if the car that you were planning to buy was the best deal in the market or whatever. So it's all based on customer feedback. It's all very objective. And so it has a huge amount of credibility in the industry because, like I said, you can't buy the score. It's your customers telling you that they think you're the best. Okay? So you've learned one thing already, and that's J.D. Power. Anyway, you know, service in the hotel business has gone through many different changes and many different ways that the guests perceive service and what they're looking for. And we're particularly challenged today because of some technology that's hitting the industry that's having a big impact on us. How many of you have heard of e-check-in? You check into a hotel on your cell phone. Heard of that? How many of you have heard of e-key, electronic key? So Hilton and Marriott are pretty much pioneers in this, but several other hotel companies are rolling this out very aggressively. It's now possible if you're a Hilton Honors Diamond member. Hilton Honors is the loyalty program for all of the Hilton brands. If you're a Hilton Honors member, not just Diamond, but any level, you can check in online. You can have a key downloaded to your telephone. So when you arrive at the hotel, you don't have to speak to a soul. You walk in the door, you go to the elevator bank, you go up to the floor. When you get to your room, your phone connects by Bluetooth with the door lock, and you're in the room. And you haven't spoken or said a word to anybody. Now, what do you think that's doing to the service culture in hotels? Yeah.
I think it's definitely making an impact.
In what way?
Well, it's kind of dehumanizing the whole thing. I mean, it's hospitality, so I mean, you're kind of removing the service aspect.
Yeah, hospitality is about people, right? About interacting with people. And if you have no interaction at all, that's a huge challenge. Because the key to making sure that every guest is satisfied is to what?
Service.
Ask them. Okay? I mean, it wasn't a trick question, honest. How do you know if a guest is satisfied? You ask them. And Hilton, like many other companies, has a way to survey their customers. It's called the SALT system, Satisfaction and Loyalty Tracking. And so every hotel at the end of the month, there's a department within Hilton that sends out emailed surveys to a scientifically selected sample of their guests. And those surveys come back and the hotels find out how satisfied the guests were or dissatisfied, if that's the case, what their problems were, all kinds of information. And the hotels live and die by those SALT scores because that's what determines whether or not, among other things, they make their bonus. Okay? So we've got a real problem here in learning how we can get around these barriers that are currently being constructed by technology. So I asked you earlier, how do you find out if a guest is satisfied, and then gave you the answer. You ask them. But what if it's a situation where they don't stop by the front desk? They've got that e-key. They come in the front door, they go up to their suite, they go in there, and nobody has said boo to them. How do you counteract that, or how do you work with that? Any ideas?
Like through the surveys,
I'm sorry?
like you were talking about surveys, that's what I mean.
Surveys are good for after the fact, but I'm talking about establishing a personal relationship with that guest while they're with us. It's a real challenge. Let me tell you how we've approached it. When I was teaching the general manager training program for Homewood Suites and Home2 Suites, I asked every general manager to take a pledge. And that pledge was, at my hotel, the guest never speaks first. Now I want you to stop and think about that for a minute. What does that mean? What does that accomplish? What is the goal behind that pledge?
Having the GMs interact with guests.
Not just GMs.
Assist the entire staff.
Yeah, the entire team.
Having the synergy.
Yeah.
with the
It
customers.
basically means that great guest service is everyone's job. And we can't miss a single opportunity to reach out and touch a guest. You know, so it doesn't have to be the person at the front desk. A lot of hotels have started something called the lobby lizard, which is a member of management who is scheduled to just be in the lobby during heavy check-in periods. And if they see somebody walk in the lobby and they're obviously just coming in because they're dragging their luggage behind them, and they're not heading over to the front desk, they're probably an e-check-in, right? With an e-key. So what do they do in that case?
You interact with them.
They what?
You interact with them.
Yeah, they go up, they greet them, they ask them what they're in town for, thank them for coming to the hotel. You know, and like I said, that's a spirit, a culture that we want to permeate the entire team. Now, before I get into heart, let me tell you about another challenge we've got, and that is, in most hotels, there's a significant portion of the team member population that don't speak English, right? So if it's so important for us to make sure that every opportunity is taken to touch a guest when we see them, and you've got a housekeeper that's Hispanic and speaks no English, how's that going to work? How can that housekeeper actually keep that pledge that the guest never speaks first? Well, there's something real easy they can do right up front that means the same thing in any language, and that's what? They see a guest, they smile, establish eye contact. And then what we recommend to our hotels is that the team member greets the guest as they normally would, but the important thing is they do it in their native language. So if Chris is out in the corridor and I'm a houseman and I'm in the corridor, I only speak Spanish and I see him, I nod, I smile at him and I say, "Buenos dias, señor." Now what have I just communicated to him?
Speak Spanish.
Yeah, if he's got a problem or needs something, it's probably not going to be very productive for him to spend 5 minutes talking to me about what he needs. Wouldn't you agree? Now, that's all well and good, but the problem is he needs something, and we need a method by which to find that out and get that to him. So there's another piece that goes along with this. Many of our hotels have bought every single team member business cards. On one side of the card is the hotel information. On the other side of the card, there's a space that says, "Hello, my name is," they can write in their name. I don't speak English, but if you need service or have any requests, please dial our manager on duty at this extension. Okay? So, the point is, you can't just let that happen. You've got to train people in how to do this, because what happens if you don't train people is they use it as kind of a way to ward off any potential guest contact. So if they see a guest coming down the corridor without saying a word, they whip out one of those cards, it's back, stick it in the guest's face. Which is not what we're looking for at all, right? So customer service, the reason I told you this story, it's becoming a bigger and bigger challenge. And the reason it's so important is it's really the only thing that separates one brand from another. A hotel room is a hotel room. There are a lot of new boutique brands out there being created, but the bottom line is, for the majority of the traveling public, if you stick them in a hotel room and they don't see a logo, are they necessarily going to know where they're at? No, because it's a bed, right? It's a shower. It might be a kitchen if they're going for extended stay. It's a big screen TV. And it's pretty much the same in the big box Marriott as it is in the big box Hilton or any other big box hotel. So how do you make the difference? How do you get that special place in the guest's mind that means the next time they come to that city, they're going to stay with you again? How do you do that? What are we talking about? Service. You have to make the difference with service. You have to treat people in such a way that they are outrageously pleased. In fact, for the Homewood Suites brand, we have a kind of a slogan called OPOG. OPOG. Now, I realize it sounds like a Swedish health drink, but it's not. What it really means is outrageously pleasing our guests. And by that, what we're saying is we don't want guests to just be happy. We don't want guests just to be satisfied. What do we want guests to be? Outrageously pleased. We want to go beyond the normal. We want to do a little bit extra. Anybody in here from New Orleans? That's New Orleans for those of you who are not familiar. Any New Orleans folks in yet? Any of you been to New Orleans? Okay, has anybody in here ever heard of a concept called lagniappe? Tell me about it.
I know what it means, but I forgot. Isn't it putting something into something like
Lagniappe very simply defines doing a little extra.
yeah.
And it's part of the service culture of New Orleans. It's one of the reasons I love going to New Orleans, because they really do have this culture of connecting with people and making them feel welcome. Lagniappe just means that we're going to do a little bit more than you expect. So let's say you go to a bakery and you're going to order a dozen crullers, which is what we call donuts, but they call crullers for some reason. Okay?
They don't say crawlers?
Probably.
They say crullers?
I'm probably mispronouncing it, you're right. But if you order a dozen, how many you going to get? 13, I guarantee. Because that's lagniappe, that's that little bit extra. And that's what sticks in people's minds. That's what separates you from everybody else. Okay? So doing that little bit extra, really connecting with guests, doing everything we possibly can to make a connection and build a relationship with the guests, even despite some of this technology getting in the way, that's the secret sauce. Now, are there ever times when things go wrong in hotels? Really? You mean it's not just all sweetness and light and everybody's just happy as a clam? Well, you're right. Blank happens. You're familiar with the bumper sticker. Fill in the blank. You know, stuff is gonna happen. Now, sometimes it's nobody's fault. Sometimes something breaks, or sometimes it's a natural disaster, or sometimes it's beyond the control of the people in the hotel. Have any of you worked at a hotel front desk? Nobody. Okay. Well, you would be amazed at the number of guests that walk in the front door who are already mad. And they just want to dump on somebody. Because their flight got canceled and they got delayed and they had to have a connecting flight. Instead of getting in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, now they're getting in at 10 o'clock at night. And they are not happy campers. Okay? So what is our job in our hotel with a guest like that? Try to cheer them up. Try to do something to make them feel happy. Try to make them feel like somebody really cares. And that's what heart is about. Now, there are a lot of different forms of guest service training and different acronyms. Some of you may have heard of. This board is terrible. You can't see that. I'm going to go over here.
Wait a minute, Mike. Yeah, this is better.
I mean, for years in the industry, there was something called LEAP. And then it became LEAF. Then it became HEAT. And it wound up being WIT. Now, what is all this gobbledygook? Well, these were acronyms. These were ways that hotels were training their team members to remember a process to take care of a guest problem or an issue. Okay? And they were all very similar. LEAP was listen, empathize, apologize, and problem solve. LEAF was listen, empathize, apologize, fix the problem, and follow up. HEAT was hear, empathize, apologize, and take care of the issue. And WIT, my real favorite, was whatever it takes. Now, you're a new front desk team member, and you got a guest in your face that's got a problem, and they're real upset. Does WIT do you any good? Does that give you any guideline, any kind of clue about how to approach this problem? Isn't it ridiculous? It's kind of like, well, you really ought to be friendly. You know, can't we all just love each other here? what we discovered was good customer service just doesn't happen. Now, a big piece of it is hiring the right people. And let me tell you, that's becoming more and more difficult. Why do you think that is? Why is it becoming more difficult to hire team members that can really connect and make a relationship happen with the guest?
Probably because it's hard to tell if they can do that in just a couple interviews, honestly.
The selection process is difficult, but I'll tell you the main reason it's a problem is because so many people these days aren't very good at communicating with people. They're real good at communicating with cell phones or laptops or whatever, but they don't have those skills to build a personal relationship with another human being. So where do you find those people? How do you sift through all the different folks and find the people who can really build those relationships? I'll give you an easy answer. You steal them. And I'm not kidding. It's an open market out there, right? Let's say you go to a grocery store and there's a sack boy at the grocery store who's just friends with everybody. He's cheerful. He's always talking to people about positive things. People feel good around him. I mean, people walk away smiling. Isn't that somebody that would be great at the front desk of a hotel? Because they've got those people skills. You know, the hotel business, and pardon me if this is apostasy, but the hotel business in reality is not rocket science. Especially with the computer support we have today. We can teach just about anybody what they need to know to be successful as far as procedure and as far as handling the day's transactions and that kind of stuff. What you can't teach people is how to like other people. I have a saying, it's my favorite saying, and it's this: you can't teach a pig to tap dance. It's a waste of time and it annoys the pig. Now, what in heaven's name does that mean? If you hire somebody that really doesn't enjoy dealing with people, you can train them until you're blue in the face. But are they ever going to reach a point where they're good at dealing with people? No. That's one of those things that you're either born with or you're not. But it's absolutely crucial in our industry. And there's a lot of competition for those folks because, as we have already mentioned, the number of them is shrinking. There are fewer and fewer out there and more companies that want them. So getting the right person in place is key, and then training them, letting them know that there is a way to deal with a guest issue or a problem that works for the guest, it works for the team member, it takes care of problems, and 99.9% of the time it turns a negative situation into a positive situation. And believe it or not, that was all an introduction to the principal topic, which is heart, and what it means and how you use it. So, Chris, would you mind handing these out?
No, sir. All part of the service there.
Excellent service. Thank you, sir. So hard. What the heck is hard? What does it mean and how does it work? HART is an acronym. It's a way for people to remember a process, a step-by-step approach to dealing with guests. And it's not just guests. It's dealing with each other, dealing with people in the community. It's the way in which you deal with people. If there's any kind of need, any kind of problem, any kind of issue, HART has been proven over the course of the years to be the best approach to dealing with that. Okay? H-E-A-R-T. H stands for what? Hear. You've got to listen to people. And that's why I was talking about it so key that we have a way to reach out and touch every guest. I can't tell you the number of times general managers will call and they're so frustrated because they saw a guest leaving the hotel. They stopped and said, "How was your stay? Everything okay?" The guest goes, "Oh yeah, fine." They leave, and the next thing they know, they get one of those SALT surveys and they slam the hotel. Now, why would the guest not share a negative situation with the hotel before they left?
The hotel should have before.
I'm sorry?
The hotel should have done it before. She never did.
Yeah. Maybe nobody at the hotel asked. Or maybe they thought nobody cared. Because they're experienced. I don't know about you. I'm a professional cynic at heart. But I'm going to say something and I'd be interested in your reaction. I believe that in general, service in the United States sucks. And it's getting worse. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
It's pretty generally bad, isn't it? So if you can do a little bit better, if you can stand out from that crowd and serve people in a more humane, in a more relationship type way, do you think that that tends to impress people? Absolutely. So you got to hear them. And sometimes it means you got to be the one asking, how is everything? Is there anything we can do for you? Thanks so much for being our guest. We really appreciate you being here. Is there anything that you'd like that we could help make your stay more enjoyable? That's critical. But a lot of times you don't have to ask them. They'll show up at the front desk and they're ready to tell you. You know. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that the majority, and I stress that more than 2/3 of guests, when they come to a manager or the front desk with a problem, they don't really want the hotel to do anything. They just want them to listen. They want somebody to hear that they have an issue or a problem and care about it. It's amazing. It really is amazing. If you just get really skilled at being a good listener. Now, there are some specific skills you need to be a good listener, and they're kind of listed up there. What are some things you have to do to be an active, attentive listener? What are some techniques to show somebody that you're really listening to them?
Eye contact.
Eye contact, yeah. Don't be working on a computer or doing something over here and talking to a guest about an issue or a problem. Have you ever noticed you walk up to a cash register, as long as the person behind the register doesn't look at you, you don't exist? Have you ever experienced that? You're invisible. So you got to establish that eye contact. Okay. Then what else do you do to show you're listening?
Respect the problem.
Okay, you said restate the problem, which is one of the very good steps, but it's a little early for that. They haven't really told us the problem yet. So how do we let them do that in a way that lets them know that we really are listening? Think about it.
Kind of put yourself in their shoes.
That comes a little bit later, but good thought. We'll come back to it. Yes, yeah. You kind of give them some visual cues. You know, you stand there in an open type of way. You're not doing one of these numbers, right? And you're nodding or you're saying, oh, that must have been really tough. Or kind of sympathizing with them a little bit. Not too much. We're going to get into what happens when you sympathize versus what happens when you empathize. Okay? And then, one of the things you've got to be careful is don't interrupt. Don't jump in and immediately come up with a fix to the problem. Because remember what I said, most people really aren't expecting the hotel to do anything. They just want somebody to what?
Listen.
To listen and to care. So let them get it all out on the table. And sometimes it's very helpful to kind of repeat back to them what you just heard. To make sure that you're both on the same page and that it's a really good way to show that you really did closely listen to what the issue was. Okay. So H is here. H is use active listening techniques. Make sense? Okay. So what is E? Empathize. Now, when you're empathizing with somebody, what are you doing? What? What is empathy?
In there.
I feel you, right? I've been there. I've walked a mile in your moccasins. I can really appreciate why you're upset. Have you ever gone to somebody with an issue or a problem and they treat you like it's irrelevant? It's so minor that it's not even worth. They don't understand why you're complaining. It's such a nitpicky little thing. How did that make you feel? Not a good feeling, right? Not a positive type of feeling about that particular organization. People want to know that somebody has heard them and that somebody cares. And the way you tell people that you care is to use empathy. And statements like, well, I can certainly understand that it must have been a terribly long day for you. Or maybe if you've experienced something similar, you can share that. You know, the last vacation I took, they canceled 2 flights. I wound up getting into my final destination at 3 o'clock in the morning. I know it's rough. Travel's a curse, right? And if I say that to you because you're upset because your flight was delayed, what have we just done here? We've kind of made a relationship, right? We both agree that this is something that just really sucks, and it really should be better than this kind of experience, okay? That's empathy. Now, I want to warn you against using or mistaking sympathy for empathy, okay? Empathy is, I understand how you feel, you have a right to feel that way. Sympathy is, it sucks to be you. Empathy is positive, sympathy is almost always negative. Okay? So stay away from sympathizing with people. Use empathy instead, and that builds that relationship with you. Sometimes there's a fine line. Sometimes a little bit of sympathy is appropriate. Somebody shows up and says that they're in town because their son passed away. Is some sympathy in order there? Absolutely. But in general, you want to use empathy to build that relationship. Okay, here's the big one. The A is what?
Apologize.
Apologize. Now, how many of you like to apologize? You like it? You enjoy it? Why?
I'm from Canada, that's what we do. Sorry.
You're from Canada, that's what you do. Is that right? I had never heard that.
Yep.
Why do people say that?
Well, it doesn't really mean the same thing in Canada. Sorry is more like, it has a different meaning, I feel like. Like, I'll say sorry all the time in regular conversation.
Yeah.
But that really means excuse me though, right?
Yeah, it really means like,
Oh,
excuse me,
okay.
Which is different
You know,
than apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, apology here, apology for most people
But I think
implies what?
apologize.
That they what? That they did something wrong. It's their fault. And I'll tell you, getting team members to apologize, genuinely apologize, is the hardest part of this process. You've got to let them understand that just because you're sorry something happened doesn't mean it was your fault. Doesn't mean that you're admitting you screwed up. It doesn't mean you're going to get in trouble because you didn't do something right. Whether we caused the problem or whether we even could have prevented the problem, can't we always be sorry that the problem happened? And that's what people are looking for. They're looking for somebody to listen to them, to understand that they have a right to be upset and that there's somebody who's sorry that happened. Okay? But we're not finished yet. Now we get to the big one. R stands for what? Resolve the problem. This is where you separate the men from the boys. You've got to come up with a solution. Something that will satisfy the guest, and not just satisfy the guest, but remember our standard of service is what?
Always do a little more.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
You said always do a little more.
Always do a little more. Outrageously pleased. Go that step beyond. Give it a little bit of lanyard. Do something unexpected. I'll give you a perfect example. I was talking to a general manager of a Homewood Suites in Birmingham, Alabama, and she told me about a situation where a guest came to the front desk very upset because she did not receive her wake-up call. Now that could be a major issue. There have been lawsuits over that type of thing. Okay? So the person at the front desk, first of all, listened and made sure that they got all the information. They empathized with the guest. I know it must be very frustrating to be late for a business meeting. This was after the fact. This lady had missed her wake-up call. She caught a taxi. She got to the meeting late. She was embarrassed. And she wanted to know what the hotel was going to do about it. Well, the person at the front desk said, "We're really sorry that happened. Obviously, that's not the kind of service that we want to give to guests. We'd like to know what can we do to make this up to you." That's the best way to resolve a problem is basically do what? Ask them what they want. Now, a lot of people are reluctant to do that because they're afraid they're going to want everything. They're going to be outrageously greedy or whatever. Our experience is that is not the case. Both of the teams that I worked with, the Homewood Suites and the Home2 Suites brands, had a 100% unconditional satisfaction guarantee. Basically what we said was, if you're not satisfied with anything regarding your stay, please let us know. We'll make it right, or your night stay is free. Now, how do you feel about that? Does that worry anybody in here? If you were part owner of that hotel, might you be concerned? Well, let me tell you, this guarantee in the case of Homewood Suites has been in place since 1989. And Home2 Suites launched with a guarantee 4 years ago. And during that period of time, we discovered several things. First of all, most people, the vast majority of people, do not want their money back. Let's say you're a business traveler. You're staying in a hotel on business. Who's paying for your room?
The company.
Your company. It's not coming out of your pocket. So if I say, well, we won't charge you for last night's stay, what have I done for you? Nothing. I'm just taking the easy way out. Right? Are there cheaters, do you think? Possibly, definitely. They've always been there, and they will always be there. There have been cheaters around since Mary and Joseph got walked. Okay? And it's not worth the hassle. They are so small a percentage of the people who stay in hotels that in both of the brands that I was involved with, we didn't even track them. We really didn't. We didn't worry about that. We knew that there were going to be times when people might take advantage of us, and we were okay. That was the cost of doing business. That was kind of our commitment to telling guests, we really mean this. There are no exceptions. There are no restrictions. There are no asterisks with little tiny types of things underneath that say, except days ending with a Y or periods of a full moon or any of those kinds of exceptions or whatever. What we said was, if you're not happy, let us have a chance to make it right. And if we don't satisfy you, if it's still not right, then you don't pay. But what we also told everybody is it's not about the night, it's about making it right. Because that's what almost everybody wants. They don't want their money back, they want somebody to fix the problem. And not just fix it, go a step beyond. So let me tell you what happened in the case of this lady whose wake-up call was missed. She was actually talking to the assistant general manager who was working the desk at the time. And the AGM listened, empathized, apologized profusely, and then told the guest, this is never going to happen again. And I will make my personal promise to you that I will ensure that your wake-up call is made on a timely basis when you're here on this day and any future stay. What we're going to do is, first thing tomorrow morning, we're going to have an all-team meeting. We're going to talk about this. We're going to find out what caused it, and we're going to fix it so it never happens again. And thank you for bringing this to our attention, because we don't want this to happen to any guest. And if we don't know about problems, it's difficult for us to fix them. Now I want to stop just here for a moment and ask you, when was the last time you complained about something and the person you talked to thanked you for complaining? Can any of you think of an example of that? It's tough, because it never happens, but it's incredibly powerful. If somebody is going to come to you with a problem and you tell them how you're going to resolve it and then say, and thank you for letting us know, what's the message to that customer, to that guest? That you care, that you really want to have a great relationship with them. So that was the resolution in that case. They resolved that they were going to make sure that that never occurred again. But we haven't gone to an OPOD level yet, have we? This lady was staying for 4 days. The following morning, she got her wake-up call. She came down to the lobby, and instead of a cab waiting for her, there was a limo. No charge. And the hotel paid to have a limo take her to her business meeting and back from the business meeting the entire time she was there. And you know what? It didn't cost them a penny, because they had a trade-out agreement with that limo company. They were the ones that they used for any kind of limo service. But how do you think the guests felt about Was that a little bit extra? Was that something that would stick in somebody's mind, do you think? Yeah, and that's what this T is about. Thank the guest for bringing the problem to your attention, and then be sure to follow up to ensure the solution is, first of all, that the solution is fixed, and you do what you committed, that you said you'd do to the guest. But just as importantly, you follow up with your team, and you say, okay, we had a major oopsie with this guest. How do we make sure that never happens again? What went wrong? What do we need to change? How can we become better? And if that's your focus, if your focus is on making sure that nobody leaves your hotel dissatisfied, if you can possibly arrange it, and that you are constantly looking for better ways to do things so that you're improving your operation on an ongoing basis, you're going to be a superstar. Because service is the only way that you can make a true difference in this business. It's absolutely crucial. So does this make sense? Think you can remember it? It goes just one step further. And that one step is a little bit touchy-feely, and some of you might not be real comfortable with it. But when I launched HEART with Home and Suites and Home 2 Suites, I said HEART is a great acronym, but there are all kinds of acronyms over there. What makes HEART special is, first of all, that it's a process that works, and secondly, that it is the right attitude. And that attitude is, as hotel professionals, it's our responsibility to spread the light and warmth of hospitality throughout the world. That's a quote from Conrad Hilton back in 1958. And I've always loved that quote. Don't you want to be seen as somebody who's trying to spread light and warmth? And that's what being part of HEART is all about. It's serving from your heart, with your heart, putting your heart into everything that you do. When we train people at the hotel level on HEART, each person gets a little magnetized heart pin. And they wear it. And they're proud of it. And very often people will ask them about that pin. When I traveled, and I traveled a lot before I retired, I was constantly being asked about the pin because I always wore one. And practically every flight attendant I ever ran across wanted to know if that was part of the Susan B. Komen March for the Cure or something like that. And I determined early on that I wasn't going to make this something that was a commercial for Hilton or for the two brands. And so anytime anyone asked me what that HEART was there for, I said, you know, I'm in the hospitality business, and the hospitality business is all about showing your heart and putting your heart into whatever it is that you do so that you spread the light and warmth of hospitality. And then I took the heart off and I gave it to the person that asked. And I say, and I would tell them, please wear this. And the next time you come across somebody who does just a fantastic job of service, makes you feel good, takes care of an issue, or just is a joy to be around, you pay it forward. You give them that heart. You tell them that you appreciate that they put their heart into what they do. And if we do that enough, then we can turn this situation around here in this country, and we can say that service no longer sucks. That instead we have great hospitality. We want to be known. You know, you talk about other countries. I went to Scotland for a 2-week vacation. I have never met nicer people. And if you talk to people about Scotland, they will tell you they're nice folks. They'll help you out any way they can. I heard the same thing for other countries as well. New Zealand. I've always wanted to travel to New Zealand. I've talked to people who've been there. They say the people there are wonderful. They'll just do anything for you. You'll never meet a stranger there. Don't we want people saying that about our country? What would that do for us if we could turn that situation around? It means that you would continue to have bright prospects in this industry, folks, because it would keep growing our tourism and our, share of that huge market. So that's hard. How am I doing on time? Whew! I got a couple of minutes. Somebody's got to have a question. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, you said you were in hospitality for 37 years.
Yep.
So what have you enjoyed the most?
Teaching.
Teaching.
Absolutely. I love to be able to spread good news. And and to see the light come on in somebody's eyes. When we launched Home 2 Suites, it was really wonderful. Now, I was involved in creating and launching Hampton Inn. But Hampton Inn grew very slowly when it first started. It started back in 1984. And we only opened 3 Hampton Inns the first year. And it grew slowly for a variety of reasons. Not to do with the product, but some other things. The economy wasn't doing real well, and there were some other issues there. When we opened Home 2, I actually got to go out to every single Home 2 that opened in the first 2 years, and I got to train team members for their opening training. And this is what I talked about. I talked about heart. And that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of in my career, is that I was able to be a part of launching 2 iconic brands like that, but more importantly, to have such a key role in making sure that Home 2 Suites got off the right foot. Time to party.
Is that a live band? It sounds like.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, big event tonight.
Any other questions or comments?
What else do we have for Mike?
Yes.
So have you ever worked at one of the brands in a different country?
No, I haven't worked in a hotel outside of the U.S., but I've stayed in a lot of hotels
Was there any
outside.
difference, even though they're the same brand and culture, was the culture kind of different?
It's different in every country. It really is. And for good or bad, you can definitely tell the difference between the way people serve here in the United States versus the way people serve in Switzerland, for example. Switzerland is very efficient. They are locked down. They've got it. Every I dotted, every T crossed. But you kind of feel like you're part of this big machine. You're just a cog moving through the actions there. Whereas another example would be Italy. Italy is completely disorganized. They don't know what the heck's going on, but they're having a wonderful time, and they will make you have a wonderful time with them. That's my experience. Anybody ever traveled to Italy in here? No? Or Switzerland? So different people will probably have different reactions, but that's how I respond. It depends on the country. Any other questions? Well, can I say thank you for letting me talk to you tonight. This is what lights my fire. This is what makes this business such a joy to be in, and what will make you successful if you truly adopt it. So I encourage you to do that. I wish you all the best of luck. So thank you.
Mark, if I can say, being a general manager in a hotel or number of hotels, this one.
She has worked for Home & Suites in the past. It's one of our award-winning GMs from.
And that works.
Anne Marie Mallott is also an adjunct instructor here as the general manager of the